we're actually recording this one after the episode you're gonna see today. We want to do a shout out to a couple of our friends who are going through a tough time.
Very tough time. Very tough time.
So, Shawn, do you wanna tell them?
Yeah. So we have 2 GoFundMes. We're going to put the links in the description. 2 artists we know. One we're very close friends with, Andrew Robinson, lost his everything. He lost everything to the fires in LA. He's fine. His family's fine. But I mean, all his clothes, everything gone. So there's a GoFundMe to kind of help him rebuild his life. And the link to that is below. Andrew, if not for Andrew, I wouldn't be here. He taught me so much. I interned under him and I owe him a lot. So I hope you all can spare something to help him out.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, you have other options other than the GoFundMe page. You can also either ask for a commission through essentialsequential.com.
Right.
You can get like fully painted commissions for really cheap, too cheap probably, but it's
too cheap
for the level of talent that this guy has. It's
I mean, I think you and I agree. Andrew's one of the best artists out there. I think
to me, overall, I think in my opinion, he's the best.
Yeah.
If he's not the best, I put it in the top 3.
I agree. I totally agree.
And is a great guy. We had him recently on the podcast.
On the show. Yeah.
And so one option is commission him something through Essential Sequential. Another option is, and I probably would suggest this one, is to buy directly like some of his art on the website.
Yeah, that's definitely
so that he doesn't have to, he's got a lot on his mind right now. So probably giving stuff to do probably is not ideal, but I don't know. Maybe he's happy about it. But personally, if I was in his shoes, I'd rather have straight up money without having to work for it.
That's true. And then there's also the GoFundMe.
Yeah, and also the GoFundMe. I actually bought a page yesterday.
Oh, did you?
I bought a big double spread cover. Yeah, a painted one. You know the bass reefs?
Yes. Yeah. Nice.
So I bought that cover, that double spread. It's
awesome.
Beautiful. And speaking of bass reefs, the creator of that bass reef is another guy that
good segue.
We should help. David Williams. Yeah. Another good friend, great artist, great guy. Yeah. And he's he and his wife, he and his family, they went through a full nightmare. His wife got cancer. I don't know which kind, but for sure a bad one. She unfortunately passed last week after a really bad time in which David hasn't been able to work. They've been together for like 38 years or something.
Yeah, long.
So it must
long
be.
time.
They had 3 kids. It must be like I don't even want to think about what the guy's going through. So please help him out. There's another GoFundMe. Yeah. You'll find it in the description. Click on the link and whatever. Even if it's just $20, whatever you want to do, I'm sure that it will help him a lot. He's going through a lot. So that's it.
No, actually, let me throw one more. Let me throw one more in the ring. Another friend of mine.
If you want to GoFundMe for Shawn, he needs money as well. So
I don't have anything bad happening, but I'll take it.
I might open one for myself just because, and just give us all the money. Yeah.
But no, one more GoFundMe I do that I'll put in the link. A good friend of mine who's been very supportive of the Inkpulp podcast for a while now. Rapper Booty Brown from the Far Side. Also, his mother lost her home. It was his childhood home to the fires. And so they're trying to help her rebuild a life too. So we'll throw that GoFundMe down there too. So, these fires have fucked up a lot of people's lives. So
yeah, man, it's so weird that, this kind of things keep happening in that area of the States, but there isn't a solid system, for that.
Yeah.
Fucking sucks, man.
Yeah. So any help you guys can give, please do.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's start the episode.
Yeah.
We had the discussion like last year or something about the success of manga compared to the traditional American comic books. I think one of the keywords was consistency. I see over the past 15 years, what I see is constant relaunching series. And then after 2 years, you're already hearing a new relaunch.
Yep.
And then, they keep in relaunching stuff, trying to dismantle what somebody did just last year.
Right.
They already dismantled it and do new stuff. So it's just, it's almost like what you're doing doesn't almost make sense anymore.
This is the Inkpulp Podcast.
And that's why Matteo's a Shawn, right? That's why we don't like him. Right, anyway.
Exactly. That's what I always say.
Jamie, I did want to, let's just start the podcast because I did have questions I wanted to ask you, and Matteo did too. So, all right, 3. I'll be the countdown. 3.
Well,
2.
we can start from Jamie calling me a I think it's a great start.
Yeah, I actually, that's a good, it's already started. Welcome back to the Inkpulp Podcast.
Have I just offended the entire American audience of that show?
No, you're fine.
That's a dangerous word to you guys.
It's not as much as it was. It's losing its power. Yeah, I noticed. I say it a lot now, and I'm like, I used to never use that word. But like when Steph and I are talking at the end of the day, she'll be like, I had this cunt come in today, and it's like, that's a word 10 years ago we never would have said.
Yeah, probably 6 months from now, we'll be able to use the N-word again. Like we used to back in the good old days. Right, Shawn? When we used to throw it around like a Frisbee.
That was the comedic timing of that was so beautiful because you're like, we'll be able to use it again like we used to. That was so good. Oh, that was good timing. Oh my god. Fuck.
Oh, by the way, I just remember something that's completely unrelated to this, but when we did the New York recap,
yes,
we forgot about one guy that stopped by at the table, a fan of the podcast. His name is Amir Diop. I hopefully I'm spelling it right.
Oh, yeah.
Is the guy who gave us
the big
huge painting.
We talked about him because Jamie put the paintings in the show. I sent him the picture.
Oh, the huge ones as well?
Yeah,
I thought you were only talking about the new caricatures.
No. I sent
those ones.
I think Matteo might be right, Shawn. I think that was the live show that we showed the big ones in. I don't know if they were
it
in
was
that
a
episode.
live show. I showed it. Okay.
Well, if you want to show them again for this episode, there's a reason why I'm talking about this book now, because Amir recently contacted me via, I think, Instagram, because he now has a video online. I'll send you the link, Jamie. There's a video. He's trying to do this interesting thing.
Yeah.
Basically, it's an interactive book, and you have the QR code here. So basically, the QR code takes you to a website when you can see the book in its animated version. It's the whole thing. So, just click on the link in the description, guys. And that's, that's it. I needed to say it because I remember we forgot to mention him.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Jamie's right. It was a live show. Jason just sent me a picture of those paintings. He's like, "What do you guys want me to do with those?" I was like, "Just hold them. The next con we do together, I'll bring a bigger suitcase so I can get them get them off.
Yeah. We don't have them with us because they were so big, and I couldn't find a way to,
I didn't want to roll them up
to fit it anywhere. So
I'll bring a bigger suitcase next time.
Maybe in Chicago. By the way, did you receive any answer from Chicago or nothing yet?
No. Did you?
No, not yet.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Yeah, it's still early. I think we're okay. I asked Jason, and he confused me with his answer, but basically we're just waiting.
Thought for a second you were gonna say it confused me with somebody else, another Jew.
No, he's just his answer. I was
didn't
like,
recognize me.
No, but I know you applied. I know Raphael applied, and I applied, and none of us have heard. So I think we're fine.
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll be okay.
So, what was the thing that you were asking Jamie?
All right, so we were starting to talk about. You were talking about a newsletter. We're talking about like how to maximize your exposure and connect with your audience more and monetize what you're doing. Go ahead.
No, personally, sorry to interrupt, but I wasn't talking about the newsletter. I was talking about
email, not newsletter.
An email where people can, can write directly to us.
Right.
And that,
so I've got a lot of requests for something like that where they can connect with us, but people like Discord for that. Jamie, what do you think? Email or Discord? What's the advantages of one or the other? Yeah, so one of the joys of getting into all this podcasting and social media stuff is the technical issues. And this is honestly, whenever someone's like, well, I work much faster digitally, it's like, yeah, until an issue happens. Like I had Jason, Shawn, Alexander just lost an entire issue of a bookie true. I felt awful for him. And it's like, okay, it speeds you up, but then you lose 2 months worth of work. Like, I know it does make you faster in the long run, but it's just, you know what? My brush will never, glitch out on me.
Yeah, I remember talking to a guy who used to do paintings for the illustrations for the Magic cards.
Yeah.
And he's a traditional painter. Mm-hmm. And then he started, studying digital coloring. Mm-hmm. So he started working digital because, again, it was easier and faster. But then he decided to switch back and go back to traditional because with digital, they kept asking for corrections and stuff.
Yeah.
Because now the new policy was like, whoa, you can change it in a click.
Right.
So after a year of coloring digitally, he went back to traditional. At least, he didn't have this kind of problem, which was more annoying to him than, just having to spend more time on it.
Yeah. So all right. Yeah. So you do like getting into podcasting. It just expect it. It's like we have a good show and we have good equipment. It still happens. It's still, technology has always got glitches. Just part of what it is. So my glitched out. I lost all the sound. Jamie explained the whole Discord thing. I didn't hear any of it. So, Jamie.
Yeah. So basically,
Discord.
What I was saying about Discord is it has such an advantage over email, and like how it helps foster a community and how it helps build that. Because like what the example I gave was that a podcast that I do here in Scotland, we have a Discord for their Patreons, and we've literally watched like full friendship groups form in that Patreon of people who now go out for drinks and are in that. Like you can set up voice calls in a Discord, and you could go in there. I could go in there right now, and there'll be people in the voice calls just sitting chatting. And what I was saying is like you would more often than not find that people who watch Inkpulp, who engage with the lives, the podcasts, whatever, they would like each other if they had a chance to get to know each other and to spend time together. And so while you can set up the channels in Discord for like you would have like a promo one where you just put any links, like new podcast out, lives happening, Kickstarters, this, that, whatever, newsletters,
Dude,
stuff
think
like
about what we could do at conventions. You know how we have that photo shoot every con? We could put that info on the Discord so people could, it would be easier for them to access.
So forgive me my ignorance. So basically, Discord is a thing that's a part, or it's part of the Patreon, or it's basically
it's separate.
A message board service.
It's its own app. It's a message boarding app, basically.
But a lot of podcasts will. So see, to join a Discord, I need to send you a link the same way that Shawn would send you a link for Riverside. It's like an invite. So I'd need to say, join this Discord, and you would click it, and then you'd be in the Discord. A lot of people will put that link behind their Patreon. So it's like, if you pay for the Patreon, you can join the Discord. And then one of the advantages of the Patreon becomes you can ask questions for the podcast. You can see, like, we could do like the podcast early and stuff. You know, like when the podcast's sitting ready, you could be like, if you want to watch the podcast on the Friday rather than the Sunday, join the Discord and the link will be in there 2 days early and stuff like that.
What if, Jamie, I don't know if this is opening up a big can of worms, but what if one of the advantages was if you were behind a paywall, you could watch us recording the episode from a live stream before the public sees it on YouTube.
That's doable. Yep.
What do you think of that, Mattteo?
It could be interesting. Like, I don't know if it's ideal to go already on, the monetizing thing with Patreon, or if it's too early.
Yeah, I mean that's what I want to have a talk about. But this is all stuff. I want the sort of audience to be thinking about, like, I want them to see like what all these avenues we can explore, and they can explore when they're doing their thing too. I mean, having a Discord, having a podcast, having a YouTube channel, being on Spotify, like all that's work. And then, if you have a Discord app, like the only issue I have with Discord is, and I know it would get familiar to me, is it is chaos. Like, looking at it, I'm just like, I can't figure out what's going on. There's shit everywhere. Like boards and discussions, and I tried to use it before. I was like, this is so confusing. But that's me being an old man.
The discussions, like, but you're gonna be the one. We are gonna be the one who manage that. Like, that create you can't create a new discussion. Like, the users cannot do that.
I don't know.
No, you can't. So in Discord you have roles. So if we set up a Discord, I would be a mod. You guys would be mods. I'm not sure that you would use it, but you guys would be mods.
Yeah,
and that gives you the right to, like, ban people, create channels, create voice channels, all that stuff though. So I get what you mean, Shawn. Like, if you were brand new to Discord and you look at it, it does kind of look like chaos, but it's really simple in the fact that it's just you have a Discord, which is like an umbrella term for all these chat rooms, and then when you go into it, you just have a general chat, an art chat, a writing chat, a questions chat, a promo chat, and that's it. You would just have, like, those are examples, but you would just have, like,
right
chats for specific things.
I think it does sound like a great way to kind of nurture the relationship with the community. It does sound like a good place, like, especially with us doing the podcast and guests we have coming on. Like, we could tease, and we have Marco coming on in a week or two, I forget.
On the 15th. So 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks. So that would be a great, like, thing to put in the Discord. Like, guys, we're recording with Marco Djurjevic.
Djurjevic.
Say it again.
Djurjevic.
Is he Croatian?
Serbian. But I think he lives in Germany.
He lives in Germany, yeah. Did you get the package?
Yeah, I got it.
I got it too. Yeah, I was kind of blown away.
Stuff,
it's like really good. Yeah. Really, really nice presentation. But anyway, so he'll be on the show. But that would be something you could put in the Discord, and people would be like, if you have any questions that, let us know. We could also have a section of every podcast where it's like, all right, now it's time for the Discord questions, like at the end of the show or something.
So what you think, Shawnee boy? Should we do it?
I think we need to get on that call that I'm trying to get going with you, me, Jim, and Jamie to talk about it. I think I am leaning towards doing it. I want to hear what you guys think. I want to hear what Jamie thinks. The only thing, and I was explaining this to Jamie, the only thing is everything I'm doing in life, like I have a wonderful talent for making my life complicated. I'm just really good at it. So I am really struggling and trying to streamline and simplify everything in my life so I don't kill myself at a young age with doing too much shit. So this is now like, okay, I'm adding something to my plate. So I have to think about like, okay, it doesn't mean no. It just means I need to think about this. I need to see, are there areas I can, in other areas in life, I can push stuff aside to make room for it. This seems to have some positive benefits that might be really worth it. What do you think, Mattteo?
Yeah, no, I like that. The problem is that I'm not familiar with Discord. So right now I have the only two voices. It's your two voices that I have.
Right.
And Jamie told me about all the great things that can happen. And you told me about the fact that it can become a shit show. So, I'm internally conflicted.
Right. But now I will say I've gotten so many DMs asking for it. I know the audience wants it. And in fact, all of you listening, leave comments. Would you get involved with the Discord channel? And I think if we had Jamie like as the manager of the channel, since we're kind of dummies with it, it might make it work. And then it might take some of the work off our shoulders.
Yeah, I think that probably the way I think the thing that could save us would be to think ahead of a nice, well organized way to plan it.
Absolutely.
So suggestions, and then I know human beings. I've been on this planet enough to know human beings, and I know that probably under just suggestions, I don't think that people are gonna just have suggestions there, because maybe somebody suggests, I don't know, whatever, like having somebody on.
Yeah.
And another person like, yeah, I agree. That's fucking amazing. Yeah. Have you read the book that the guy did? And blah, blah, blah. So it becomes a fucking mess.
But that also is the benefit of it, is it gets the community talking to each other. So I think we have to be, I mean, the thing is, I've seen Discords and message boards where someone will chime in when that happens and be like, hey guys, let's move that. The moderator will be like, I'm moving this question over here so that we can keep this board for the questions. So Shawn, Mattteo, and Jim know what to ask. And then the people will go to where they're supposed to go. So that's where a moderator has to be like this gentle, like guidance, like a shepherd.
Even for stuff like that, you would make it so that like you like in Discord you can make it so, say like a guest suggestions channel for things like that, you could make it so that you can only send a message every 5 minutes, for example. And then
you can avoid the back and forth
conversation.
Yeah, if you want, you can put rules in to be like, if you want to second something, give it a thumbs up. So then you would just see like the reactions to stuff and things like that.
Okay. I think after this show, let's see if the date that I propose works for you, Mattteo. Jamie said it works for him. It works for me. If it works for you, then I'll check with Jim, and then we can all hop on and do this. Do that.
I would say another big selling point of Discord is that it does like what I was telling you guys about your branding and your social media and stuff, and how people just want to feel like they know you. Like that ties into Discord. Like it's a thing for the audience to feel like they're basically in a big group text with you guys. Do you know what I mean? Because you would be in the Discord and they can tag you and say this, but it also comes in handy with like, so like the way you guys use newsletters, right? So like Shawn, when you had like the sale, or you were promoting like the Spawn book that's up there somewhere,
right?
You're sending out an email newsletter, and it's like, that's cool. Like I like newsletters and I'm subbed to a bunch, but there's no immediacy. Like you don't see an email come in and go, I need to check that. Like it does. Like for newsletters and stuff, it tends to be like, oh, when I see it, I'll see it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like in Discord, you can just like, you know, in the way on social media you would at someone like at Mattteo Scalera or whatever. You can at everyone in Discord. So you would just put at everyone Spawn book comes out on this date, pre-order it here, and then everyone gets like a text alert on their phone to be like, oh,
Yeah.
like
Oh,
it hangs on
shit.
their
Oh, that's
phone.
great.
Yeah.
So
it's a lot
Mattteo,
more-
if you had a Kickstarter, when it goes live, you could just be like, at everyone, my Kickstarter's live, and they all get a text.
Yep.
And shit, that's pretty dope.
Yeah, so it's a lot
All
more
the
direct.
17 people subscribe. Can have that.
14 bots and me, Mattteo, and Jamie.
And my mom and my auntie.
Dude, I got to tell you, Jamie, I don't know if I got to tell you this, but we just did a live show with Paul as a Zetta. And after the show, I always check my DMs because I usually get a bunch of DMs on Instagram of like people like loving the show. I got one request. It was like, "Hi, this is Wendy, Paul's aunt. I'm trying to find out where I can watch the show." It was like the sweetest little message, and I was like, "Oh my god, I'm sorry I didn't see this before the show started. You could have watched it live, but you can watch the replay here." So it was hilarious. I was getting a message from Paul's aunt.
That is so sweet. even for stuff to tie it back into Discord, even for stuff like the live shows and stuff, at everyone is a good like alarm bell to be like, we're starting in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Rather than just relying on people remembering like, oh,
And if those are all people that paid behind the paywall, you could be at everyone. Mattteo and I are starting the stream for the podcast if you want to watch now before it comes out. Okay. I see the potential. I definitely see the potential of this.
And even what we were talking about, Shawn, like we started talking about it when we were having some technical difficulties, but like the selling point of a Patreon is an extra podcast. The industry standard is like one a month. Some people will go above and beyond to do like one a week or whatever. One of the podcasts that I've worked on here in Scotland, the format we did was the guys would record in the studio for an hour and a half. An hour of that would go on YouTube. Half an hour of that would go on Patreon. And then at the end of the episode, it's like, right, we're going to go for another half hour. If you want to see it, just head on over to patreon.com and it's like a built-in promo.
Yeah,
You know,
I
it's
see
like-
some of the podcasts that I follow. They do that.
Yeah.
Like Congratulations, the one by Chris D'Elia. They do that. If you want to hear the rest of the podcast, just head on over on Patreon.
Yeah, I mean, Bill Maher does that on his show where it's the show is called Real Time, and then I forget what he calls the extra footage they do, but they go live on YouTube and stream it, so they're off of HBO for that. Yeah, that's a good idea. It's a good idea.
But don't you think it's a little soon to have a Patreon?
I don't know. That's where Jamie would have to advise us on that. Do we wait till we get to 10,000, Jamie?
I've seen podcasts with less than we have.
Jamie put it into perspective. Let's say we charge $5 to be on the Patreon. And how many subscribers do we need to cover the cost of you every month?
I might bleep this because I don't know if I want that public, but like we'd need to cover everything. Okay,
so that's not. I mean, that sounds like something we could aim for.
Yeah. So think about it.
Also, there's again the thing in my head that's telling me, okay, extra time.
Well, right. That's the thing. That's exactly the thing.
But that's the thing. I think it can seem a lot more than it is. Like, because realistically, for you guys, it would be an extra. If we did it that way, an extra half an hour each recording, which relatively, like we're doing now, 2 hours.
So, this is what we need to talk about when we have our meeting. Is the time?
Yeah.
But so with Discord, there's really no other place to do that. That's a Discord specific thing. But with Patreon, let me ask you. Is that because on my website I have a paywall built? It's not out yet, but I do have a paywall. So is it something we could do on my site so it's not another platform, which means more time, but it's already the site exists, the space exists. We could get people over there. Do you think that's Patreon specific, or do you think it could work another way?
I would say that it could work if you were really like, that's what you want to do, that's how you want to do it, then it could work. But I think Patreon is so Like they've been doing this for years. There's so many features on Patreon. So Patreon, you can have tiers. So you can be like, there's a $5 tier, a $10 tier, a $15 tier, whatever. And then you can limit posts. So you can post something and be like, this is just for those guys, and this is just for these guys, and this is for everyone.
Okay, so what we're talking about is expanding, basically, the business.
Yeah.
By moving to Discord and Patreon. That's what we need to talk about. So for all of you listening, these are the considerations. Like, yes, we are building our own business, and these avenues exist to allow us to expand our business and succeed in our business, but it's also more time and work. So these are the things to consider and think about. It's
absolutely. It's an interesting conversation. I don't know. In my head, I'm just thinking, is it too early? When's the right time to do the jump?
What do you think, Mattteo? Kind of you think it's too early now?
Oh, yeah, but I'm ignorant. Like, I don't know. So as Jamie said, there's people that he knows that they have less subscribers.
But let me ask you this.
And they did it,
Jamie, is something like this encourage growth?
Yeah, so what I would encourage you to think right now is like, and again, I'm not trying to shoot down the idea that it is too early. If you guys think it is, then that's fair enough. But why would that be a negative if it was too early? What would be the downside?
That's a good question.
Why would that be a bad thing? Like what bad comes from it? Even if 10 people sign up, what's the bad?
What do you think? Because then you're doing all this work.
Yeah, it's for the 10 extra people, so work, and
you're not making the money.
Something.
Right. You're not making the money to justify doing the extra work, but you're putting in the work because you want to expand it. This is the tough game of social media. Is you start doing something in the hopes that it grows your business and it makes you money. But you start doing it, you're like, okay, this is not making me the kind of money I need, but I can see the potential of it. So then you start putting time into it you start nurturing it more, putting more time into it, taking time away from other things so you can make the money. You're like, now it's making the money. And they're like, oh, but that thing over there isn't performing now. So now I got to go back to that. Like when you have too many of those things, like spinning plates going, it can be tricky.
Yeah. I guess it's all these questions come from the fact that I don't know a lot. Like I don't know as much as you do. Like the vision that you have, Jamie, about podcasting, and for sure, Shawn has a better vision than I do, but you have an even better vision than us collectively, because you can see podcasting and all this stuff from far, far away. Mm-hmm. While my vision is I'm in it, and I'm just swimming and I'm having fun swimming, but I can't see if I'm in an ocean or if I'm in a swamp or in a bathtub. Like I don't know where I am. So all my parameters don't make any sense. The only parameters that I have is, again, right now, time consuming and all that stuff, because, I have family and you're in the same situation I am in. So I'm generally thinking as we speak about stuff. So I really don't know. I don't have I don't have a clear idea at all. Like I'm fascinated by all of this, but right now, when I hear people that know what they're talking about, I start fantasizing and my wheels start spinning. But it's still there in this world of fantasy. And if we start talking about making some of these ideas concrete and actual, then it's when it has to become something, it has to move from fantasy to actual thing. One of my fears is that, for example, if we start doing a Patreon, is it worth? Because to me, it's like, for example, I have to digress a little bit, but commissions wise, during the years I started increasing the prices for my commissions, but then I started making better commissions. And in this case, for me, is that if we start doing the Patreon thing, do I start putting more quality in the thing that I'm doing? Because right now I'm just doing it, and that's it.
Well,
and
let me
people
say,
seem to like it,
right?
You know,
Matteo, I think we have to never change what we're doing.
Yeah.
I think like we're just being ourselves, and I don't think that should ever change, because that, I think, is the core of what we do and what people like. Jamie, do you think I'm correct in that?
100%. I would say you don't have to think of Patreon. Like, the one thing that I would say, right, to put all of this into perspective, and this is maybe a wee bit like behind the scenes talk to put on YouTube, but anyway, the time sink and the effort that you guys are worried about, I think would be a more valid concern if you didn't have me. You know what I mean? I think a lot of that stuff that you guys are worrying about and thinking about won't be as much of a problem as you think it will be in terms of time and effort. I just don't see it. But I also, I think what you're talking about does you have to make it better? Does it have to change? All Patreon is you like this? Do you want some more of it? There you go. That's it. It's just the same thing, but a bit more and a bit more exclusive to the people who
my doubt was internal, meaning that will I start doing it just to do it? Because we told people we're gonna do an extra half hour every time. So will my attitude be like, okay, we recorded 1 hour, we have another half an hour, so let's drag this thing just because we decided to do a Patreon.
Matteo,
so it becomes just adding water to a soup, you know? But it's internal. It's a moral compass thing.
Right. And myself. Also, it feels like you're asking, will it become a job? Will it become work? Or you're just thinking,
I can live with it being work.
Yeah.
I might. I don't know. Because again, I see myself still, my work to me is doing comic books.
Absolutely.
So
and I don't want that to ever change.
And I don't even know if it's a transition or this thing will go,
well, let me ask you this.
On a parallel way from my work.
What we all need to think about is how much do we want to turn the show into business? Because for me, I would be thrilled if this podcast made us decent money so we could just work on our own books and do a podcast and not do freelance. That would be okay with me. So if it's a business, I'd be doing the podcast and writing and drawing my own books and tattooing. That's all I'd be doing. But would you be okay with that? Or is that because to me, that's the end goal. Like, if I can find a means to support me doing my own comics, then I've done it. Mm-hmm. And because right now, freelance, it serves a purpose. It gives me money now, supports me. It also helps my profile to stay on the shelves and do all that shit. But if the podcast is doing so well and making us money, well, then my audience is right in front of me. I don't have to be on a shelf as much. And I would be okay with that. But would you be okay with that?
Yeah, I don't know. It's still a question that I haven't asked myself,
Because I think Jim would be very okay with that.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that, as I was saying earlier, like, my situation right now is that if I decide today for the next 3 years to keep doing like freelance work and that's it, I'll be fine. Like, unless something tragic happens and the industry crumbles or shit hits the fan or stuff like that. But if the situation stays more or less where it is, I keep having work. So, I don't have that kind of necessity. And by not having the necessity, my brain isn't really there yet.
Right.
It's still in the phase of, I do comic books, and then I have this thing on the side that I have fun doing, which is the podcast, which is bringing more interesting stuff for the future. And God knows, who knows what will happen. In the meantime, I'll still do it and see, the progression and still see the, the subscribers go up, and the views go up, and enjoy the success of it. and enjoy the fact that more and more people show up at shows and they know about us, and we have the pins and we have the stuff and we take the picture at the end of the show, but it's all there right now.
Right.
So my brain is not made the next step yet. So.
I got you. Yeah, that's what we'll talk about all this on our call. But you guys listening, I would love to hear in the comments, like, would you like a Patreon? Does that sound good to you? Would you enjoy a Discord and all this stuff? Because it would, everything we're talking about involves the audience as well.
Yeah.
Which again,
it's also weird for me because, sorry to interrupt, but it's also weird for me because even though I am a podcast listener, I listen to podcasts all day long, I'm the worst podcast listener ever. Meaning that I never click on anything. I never paid for Patreon. I never But
I think that's the majority of people. It's like, for example, when you send out a newsletter, you see your stats, I'm sure. So you can see I sent out, 1,000 newsletters, but only 300 people opened them. And out of those 300 people, only 20 people clicked on the link for my sale. So it's a numbers game. Like if you get more and more listeners, then the people going to Patreon goes up, not as dramatically, but it goes up. So
what I also would say is, see, you're talking about, say, 1,000 people got it and 200 people clicked the link or whatever the numbers you gave her. Having a Patreon and having a Discord is concentrating the 200 people that clicked on the link. You're taking your most engaged viewers, the people who care the most, the people who are passionate and love the platform and the podcast and stuff like that, and you're basically going, this is for you guys. This is for a place for you guys to talk, to have more content, to just have more of what you like, and you're just saying this is the space for those people, essentially.
Yeah. I got you.
So to put it in Italian terms, we have the pot of water and the pasta. And what we want to do is nurture the pasta so that when we strain it, it's delicious.
It's a fucking delicious.
But yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to think about. I mean, it's a good problem to have. It means our show is connecting with people and it's having success. But I do understand Matteo's hesitation of not wanting to change anything because it's so organic now. And maybe I'm not saying we will change anything, but he's right. If we have an hour conversation and we have to force it to keep going, is that going to feel weird? But then again, there are plenty of conversations where we can keep going and we cut it off. Yeah. So,
well, also with the Discord, we'll have, hopefully if people start participating in it, we'll have a lot of suggestions, a lot of extra questions and all that shit. So,
actually, the extra half hour could be the Discord questions.
Yeah. The Discord
that could be the extra half hour. That could easily be it.
Yeah. Well, the rest, we'll still have to see if the equation works, meaning that you can have a Discord and then you have only 2 questions and it's not enough to cover the half an hour. So you start diluting.
But don't forget that half an hour was just a number thrown out there. And that's if you're doing it once a month. If every episode we record, we have 1 or 2 questions and it's 10 or 15 minutes. So we have 4 Patreon episodes a month. Then that's an hour. Whereas one Patreon,
Shawn is already in the yes.
I'm thinking about all the angles. I'm thinking about the angles. This is how I complicate my life.
It's funny because literally 10 minutes ago, it was you see, because I have to think about it, because I have this amazing superpower complicating my life. And 10 minutes later, he's already trying to convince me to do it.
Superpower is at work.
Pretty quick. Yeah. I don't know. Let me think about it. Yes.
It's
Discord should hire me. I should be hired by Discord to promote it. Get people on board.
Yeah. Well, JB, let me ask you this. How, in this world of podcasting, is YouTube mainly just a gateway?
To what?
To the show. Because what you're talking about is doing things outside of YouTube to make money. off of what you're doing and to nurture your connection with the audience. So is YouTube just the door into the world of the podcast instead of being the podcast itself?
That is an interesting question, Shawn. And I think it all comes down to how you as a creator want to try and monetize it. Because you see podcasts that have 7 ads in the space of an hour. You see podcasts that have 0. Like, it all comes down to how you want that platform to function. Do you know what I mean? How you want it to benefit you. And most of the stuff that I've worked on has been like that, the Patreon model. One, because it's easier. Do you know what I mean? It's no easier, but it's more concrete. Like, you know, if you can work out your size and you can take say 10%, then you can roughly know what you're going to expect there, versus just kind of throwing it out into the ether and going, who wants to advertise on our show and how much would you pay? And you're just kind of setting your own rates and you don't really know how, like, the proper amount that you should be getting and stuff. But I think that what you're saying about YouTube being a gateway, I think YouTube is still like the main hub for a podcast and the main place that people will go to listen to. I don't know how most people, like, for me, like, we do video on Spotify. And I do that with like a number of the shows that I've worked on. But me, myself, as a person, I've never watched a video on Spotify, but they do well. So it's hard for me to imagine how certain people, like, I have YouTube Premium on my phone. Like, I have YouTube Premium, so I can close my phone and continue listening. And that's how I listen to everything. I do the YouTube video, lock it, and treat it like Spotify. So you're listening to it. So it's weird. There's so many platforms and so many ways for people to engage in it and stuff. And you see people
do you think, let's say we do a Patreon and let's say we do Discord and our Patreon's making a good amount of money. Do you turn off the monetization on YouTube so that you can get rid of the commercials? Okay.
No, I wouldn't. I never would.
You just, every avenue of revenue you keep open.
Yeah, I also think that what some people will do, it tends to be more of a thing. I've never seen someone do it for YouTube ads. That's actually an interesting thing to talk about. But I've seen people who have ads in their show who say, pay the £5 whatever, you'll get an ad-free version on Patreon. So that's where I was going. Is it worth it to put the ad-free version behind the paywall too? That's interesting. I don't know, because I've never.
And if so, would that hurt the YouTube viewership?
I don't think putting an ad-free version ever hurts your YouTube viewership because of the numbers of it. Like, say you're getting 5,000 viewers on YouTube and 100 patrons or whatever.
It's only 100, right?
You're only losing 100 views, and most times those people will still, out of habit, watch it on YouTube.
Right,
is what I've noticed anyway. But I've never seen someone do Patreon for YouTube ad free. It's only ever if the ad's edited into the show. Like, if you're stopping the show to do an ad, you would remove that for Patreon. But I've never seen someone do like YouTube ads. That's interesting.
Okay.
And another 2 questions, just as well for the audience, so as since we're here talking about this stuff,
12 inches,
an informative
12 inches.
Okay, awesome. That's all I needed to know. Okay, so the next flight to Scotland is in. So, is Patreon? Do we pay?
No.
Or is that completely free for the artists?
It's free.
They take a cut, right?
Yeah, it's like
they take a cut out of the
3% or something.
Profits.
3%. Okay,
something like that. That's off the top of my head. I don't know that.
Yeah. Okay. And also, and Discord,
free.
That's free. That's free for everyone.
Free.
Yeah.
Just for people to know, since we're here,
So it would be interesting to get the viewers to comment what kind of stuff, what would make them subscribe to our Patreon and see how that jives with what you guys would want to do.
Yeah,
if it seems like too much, if it seems like,
Yeah.
Interesting. But the other thing is, I mean, I hope, and I'm curious to hear what Jamie thinks about this, is it builds a deeper connection with the community and us. So like when we do launch a Kickstarter, it can also benefit the amount of people that come to the Kickstarter. It can grow the Kickstarter, or get people more invested in that. And it's also the type of thing, people have said this, if we're doing Kickstarter, maybe recording a secret episode that's just a Kickstarter tier or a stretch goal. So it just kind of perpetuates, it just kind of becomes this very tight-knit community with stuff.
Yeah, I would agree.
It's just a thought.
Just a smart idea.
Again.
Definitely. I would say that is one of the biggest selling points of all of this, is just people getting closer to you guys. Do you know what I mean? And feeling like they are a part of a community rather than watching something. And Shawn, I would say that you are exceptional at like interacting with people. Like every comment on one of Shawn's posts gets an answer. Every DM gets answered. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's really good. So that's just furthering that of like people thinking, if I join this Discord and I could type in it like, oh, Shawn, that piece looks awesome. And then you're going to respond and go, oh, thank you, man. Like, do you know what I mean? Like just that, the sense of conversing and
but
being
the
closer
problem on my end then is like, have I just spent half my day answering DMs, answering Discords, answering Patreons? True. I mean, if maybe I'm making great money and it's like, okay, I'm at work, it justifies it a bit, but it's also taking time away from me doing the main thing, which is the art. So that's what I mean. Like those
absolutely. That's my concern. I used to respond to everything back in a DeviantArt. I don't know. Are you familiar with DeviantArt?
Yeah.
Okay. So back when it was DeviantArt, I had a nice following there, and I used to reply to everything, every single comment on any single thing that I posted.
That's what I do.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah.
Jesus. But yeah, at a certain point I stopped because I saw how time consuming was.
Yeah.
For me.
But for me, it's like Jamie says, every time I do that, I feel like I am building a connection with someone.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
Those people are much more likely to support something that I self-publish. Yeah. So I see that it's a balance. It's like how much time do I put into it. I don't want it to be like, I've nurtured all these wonderful relationships, but I have no time to do the book. So did I nurture the relationships?
I remember like there were people that were so happy about it and at shows that would stop by at my table and thanking me for responding to everything. Yeah. And it was good. It was good. I wish I had the time to do that still. What I do now when I have the time, I go on my posts and I add a heart to every comment, but that's something. It's the best I can do.
Yeah. I mean, do what you can.
I'm interested to ask you guys, like when we were talking about like social media and stuff like that, as guys who have came from like that time of like DeviantArt and message boards and all this kind of stuff into like the now, it's weird for me to comment on because I'm so siloed. Like being in Scotland for a start, comics isn't such a cultural thing as it. I don't know if it still is in America or was. I don't know. And especially like the age thing. Like, do you see like a decline in younger interest in comics, like at cons and stuff like that? Like, is the audience that you're interacting with, do you see like new younger guys coming in, or like do you think it's stagnated a wee bit with the audience that it has?
From what I've seen in terms of sales, the comics audience in America is bigger than ever. But there are not kids coming into Marvel and DC. They're coming into manga, they're coming into webtoons, and they're coming into book publishers like Bone. So yes, the comics are becoming very popular with younger kids, but it's not Marvel and DC. So at cons, we don't see it. But when you look at the numbers of sales, like through the book market, through like the webtoons market, and through manga's in the book market, you see these huge numbers. Like someone showed a graphic, I forget where, but it was like Raina Telgemeier, who's a graphic novelist who works with Scholastic. It was the sales of her books versus the superhero comic industry, and the sales of her books, just her, dwarfed the comic book industry. And then Bone blew her out of the water. So the Bone sales, it was like 5 to 6 times the industry that we work in. So it was like this one book has that kind of power, but that audience is not into the mainstream comic stuff.
Do you have any theories on why like manga is so much more successful and stuff like that?
I think it speaks to kids. I mean, I think Marvel and DC, they're just doing they're completely inaccessible. Mm-hmm. They're not even something that children would be interested in. I mean, if you just open a Marvel comic or a DC comic, it's just, there's drawings everywhere and words everywhere and, characters that they don't know, like talking about stuff that, someone who's been reading the book for 10 years will only be familiar with. Yeah. And it's just, there's nothing inviting to a child in there. Yeah. And it's it's limiting, it's superheroes. Whereas like manga, if you're a little girl who likes to cook, well, there's manga on cooking. If you're a boy who likes to play basketball, there's manga on basketball. I mean, it's like, it's not limited to genre. And webtoons is the same thing. What were you going to say, Mattteo?
Yeah, I think we had the discussion like last year or something about the success of manga compared to the traditional American comic books success. But I think one of the keywords was consistency. Like I see over the past 15 years, I've seen a publisher, and I'm very ignorant about the industry, in general. So I don't know. I'm not big on numbers or anything. So it's just supposition and feelings that I have. But what I see is constant like relaunching series. Mm-hmm. And then after 2 years, you're already hearing a new relaunch. Yep. And then, they keep relaunching stuff, trying to dismantle what somebody did just last year. Right. They already dismantled it and do new stuff. So it's just, it's almost like what you're doing doesn't almost make sense anymore because, it's going to be over in a maybe a few months. And what they did with this character is not going to make any sense a year from now.
Right.
And I remember we had this thing with Todd McFarlane, and he was saying the different, like when you have an independent book with let's say Image, if you manage to have 50 issues out, which is not, it's a lot of work. We're talking about more than 1,000 pages. But if you manage to do that, some people will buy the series just because it made it to 50 issues. Just the fact that a series continued for, let's say, 5 years, and they managed to do it all and finish it, it must be worth something. Yeah, just because, and also, even for myself, if I go to a comic book shop and I see, I don't know, a big hardcover, a big compendium, a big something of a book, I'm like, well, they managed to do that, so must be worth reading, just for the fact alone. Maybe it's not good, but just for the fact alone that they managed to do it, it must be worth it. So, and manga gives you that because, all the series that I mean, there's some series that's still ongoing, but, you talk about Dragon Ball, you have the whole collection and it's there and it's finished and it's,
all those things you mentioned, the Image books, the manga books, they all have one entry point. Mm-hmm. It's issue one. And as long as you start with issue one and move forward, you'll understand everything. Mm-hmm. Marvel and DC has no entry point. It's anywhere. It's like, well, if you start at the very first issue of Jack Kirby's X-Men and work your way up, it's not even that book at all anymore.
Yeah.
I feel like that also,
I think. Sorry. Go ahead.
I feel like that also ties into what we were talking about social media and stuff, and these companies feeling kind of above adapting to certain things. Mm-hmm. Like if these can't, like you have all the Elseworld stuff with DC, and I know like the Black Label stuff and all that. I feel like that is a cool entry point for people. Maybe no kids, but like if you've never read a comic, to be like, here's this one-off book. This,
but to someone who doesn't know comics at all, to walk into a shop, they have to know that.
Yeah,
they don't even know that.
And that's what I'm saying. If these companies adapted a wee bit more to explaining that to people and to have a bit more of it and play that social media game and be like, come in and read this story and it kind of explain what it is and teaser trailers and this kind of stuff. And it's just like, if you played that game, you could have a lot more success with new readers, I think. Personally.
Yeah. And also, go ahead, Mattteo.
Okay. I think to me, And again, I'm speaking as I'm thinking, so I might be realizing after we finish recording that what I said was stupid. But I think
we'll all think that, so it's okay.
Yeah. So I think it was a bad reaction to a situation, meaning that comic books were huge in the 90s. And we all know that. That was the golden era in terms of sales. All right. Then inevitably, because comic books are not, they are a powerful medium, but it's not as powerful as what we have now with social media and all that shit, and all the kind of entertaining that we have now with this amazing TV shows, like $100 million worth of TV shows and all this amazing stuff. So inevitably the numbers went down, but as a reaction to this situation, what they did were like, okay, let's say we have 5 series going on. All right. These 5 series bring an income of, let's say, $50 million. Let's say, I'm just making it up. Now, those 6 series that we have, they're making 30 million. So how do we make up for those missing 20 millions? We make more series.
Right.
So now we have 30 series and they make $1 million each.
Right.
But the quality is not there because you have to save money when you have to budget all this kind of stuff. So that's when paying or the artist less and the writers less comes into play, because now each individual series makes less money. And now they don't have they don't have enough money, enough budget to pay for their workers, basically they're freelance workers. So it's a whole system that is, and therefore they're gonna hire less experienced people. They're willing to accept this kind of rates, and the quality becomes lower. So the book is less interesting,
right?
And it's a whole chain effect.
Yeah, what we're seeing.
But again, I might be terribly wrong with that. But this is the feeling that I have.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Sorry, I'm just closing here. But I keep referring to a really interesting thing. Mark Millar's episode with the retailers. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you both saw it. He basically had a round-out table with retailers. And they were talking about solutions. And one of Mark's solutions is go back to having a small number of series, and for those ones, invest everything in them. So pay the writer, hire the best writers, hire the best artists, lock them down for the next 3 or 4 years. Having huge story arcs, well studied with with a good team around it. So instead of having young editors, hire experienced editors, maybe former artists or former writers as editors, spend a lot of money, invest a lot of money in these projects. And now you have only 6 series, but you have the best of the best of the best, and maybe they'll draw that. And I don't know if it's the solution, but it's a solution.
Yeah. It's a solution. But also just to get back to why I think manga and the book market does better. I mean, like I said, you open a Marvel DC comic, it's overwhelming. It doesn't invite you in. You open a manga, we're looking at 3 panel pages with lots of room to breathe, and it invites the reader in with some interesting imagery. It's not like this overwhelming amount of information pounding at you. It's the genre thing. I mean, Raina Telgemeier wrote a book called Smile, which was about a young girl getting braces. So your audience is every young girl who's going through the experience and the hardship to them of getting braces, so they can relate to that. I mean, my daughter, like, Raina's books were her childhood and Bone. And as much as I gave her these like Marvel and DC, like kids versions of books, it never really grabbed her interest. Like, she would rather read novels about dragons. So I think genre has something to do with it. Like, superheroes don't speak or haven't been able to for the most part. And I don't think it's the genre that's the reason. I think it's the approach to using the genre is the reason. I think you could make, like, The Incredibles was an incredibly successful kids movie. Where's the comic that's speaking that language?
That gets to the point of, like, do you think that, like, obviously we've seen a lot more success recently of, like, indie comics and stuff like that. Do you think that will move in to fill some of that gap? And why?
I think indie comics is the future. I think Image is showing that. I think, like, I mean, seeing what Mattteo did with Black Science, seeing what, and seeing the direction Matteo's going in, seeing the direction Jim's going in, I definitely think, like, the audience is ripe for fresh, new types of stories.
Although, and here I'm conditioned in my answer because of, again, of Mark's podcast with retailers, but they were talking about specific data, and they were saying that still nowadays the driving force of the industry is still the mainstream books.
That's the driving force of the mainstream of the comic book market. But if we include the book market, it's not at all. But yeah, for comic book shops,
well, they were talking, they were talking from a retailer's
I'm just
perspective.
Saying
they're like, it's the fact that we don't have a strong mainstream right now, doesn't mean that then the independent books are rising. They rise whenever we have a strong mainstream. But again, from a retailer's perspective.
In that market, But from a bookstore's perspective, I wonder if that's true.
I
Not
don't
a
know
comic book
about
store.
that kind of market, so.
Yeah.
It's interesting stuff, but I think that also ties back to, like, what we were talking about marketing yourself and social media and stuff. And, like, it feels like, especially with the indie books and, like, the Kickstarter stuff, people are following creators now more than ever.
Yes.
It feels like people are super interested in what Matteo's doing, what Shawn's doing, what Jim's doing. Like, they want to know what the creator that they love is moving on to, and especially, like, if they listen to your podcast, they're more likely to go and check out the book that you do. But I feel like that also represents why it's important to play the social media game and to get people on your side so that when you do go,
absolutely, to build the relationship in the community. Absolutely.
Yeah, we had an incredibly interesting conversation with Carl Kerschel months and months ago. Like probably it was 2023. When he was promoting his Kickstarter campaign. And he was saying, like, a really interesting thing that opened my mind to it. It was, when I sell a book through Kickstarter, the book itself, it's too expensive. If it was a book that you buy in a shop, it would be too expensive because I'm selling you a book that normally would cost $3 or $4 for like $10, $12, $14. So it's not convenient. The reason why people buy it is because they want to support me.
Right.
So it's a completely switch of focus. Like, people are not buying the book anymore because he was saying, like, if you want to just read the book, I give it to you for free on my website. Right. So by buying it on Kickstarter, if you're interested in the story, don't buy it on Kickstarter. Just read it on my website. It's everything is for free there. Right. You're just buying it to support me so they can continue publishing the book on my website. So this thing is just, now I need money in order for me to keep doing what I'm doing. So if you know me and you like me, please support me through the Kickstarter campaign. And in exchange, I'll give you a nice book in a deluxe edition or stuff like that. Right. In exchange for your support, when it's time to going back to the drawing table and draw the next issue, So it's a completely different perspective. And it's the stuff that you experience as a comic book artist sometimes when you start working on a major title and you see a difference in the during conventions. You see a lot of people asking for commissions specifically of that character that you drew. Right. And then all of a sudden you are on an indie book or whatever. Yeah. And then a year from now, you don't have that kind of audience that shows anymore. Right. because your success at the show was connected to the character you were working on.
Right. But even that, I'm wondering if we're going to see a change, because the more and more these conventions are getting corporatized, they're becoming less and less enjoyable and interesting for us to want to do. They're like we said, we'll always do New York, but outside of New York, like doing Fan Expo and Read shows is not something we look forward to like we used to. So, I just wonder if everything's changing, and like some things are taking longer to change than other things. Everything's so malleable, and no one knows where it's going. So I think the more, like, my whole thing is I just want to build my own cottage industry. Yeah. So like, I don't even have to worry about any of those other games. Where like I have my podcast, I have my live show, I have my Kickstarters, and my audience, and I have my social media, and my audience and me are together every day, and that's my industry. I
guess I'm in a slightly different position, and this is referring to basically what I said earlier, which is the industry is still giving me a lot of work, a lot of important work. So right now what I'm doing is not even dipping my toe, because it sounds almost disrespectful, but I'm trying to make as much knowledge as possible on all the other stuff as I'm still working in the industry. So
that's great.
In case shit hits the fan, I'm prepared.
No, I think that's great.
Things work, and I know what to do in order to survive.
I think that's great. And look, my freelance career is coming alive again for the first time in a long time. So I'm not turning that off. I want to use that. Like, I want to try to use that to grow my little industry. I don't want to neglect it. I don't want to turn it off. But yeah, you're right. Like you said, be prepared for whatever happens, because we don't know.
Yeah. To me, it's more a matter of knowing, I'm just trying to make as many experiences as I can outside the freelance work, so that I know that how do you call it? The know-how, know how to do that. So I know how to do that, And we'll see what happens.
Well, that sounds like a great place to stop the conversation.
Yeah, it was a really interesting conversation. I don't know if the audience it's gonna be incredibly entertained by this, but to me, I think if I was a comic book artist, that'd be really interesting.
I think you're going to be surprised. I think this will be one of our most engaging episodes. It's not like a laugh and silly episode. It's just full of a lot of good information that I think a lot of people will be very engaged with. I think we'll get more comments than we normally get.
And they should all say, start a Patreon.
Yeah, let us know. Yeah. Well, we're going to have a meeting about that.
Yeah, that's some of the comments.
All right, Mattteo.
Wait. We're moving on the extra flame.
The Inkpulp Podcast.